Nation. We're back again with another RBT live stream. Today we are joined with a very special guest, Trevor Sikkema from the Draft Network, Locked On NFL Draft podcast. He does everything and anything. And as always, my good friend Michael Pless. So first things first, Trevor, how you been? How you doing? And what's on your mind?
It's been good, man. It's been a change moving to the Carolinas away from Tampa. That's something that I was doing this offseason, but everything's going great. I appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. I really do.
Oh, thank you for coming on. And Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks again, Trevor, for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you on. I know we had you on last year before the draft, and really excited to talk some Bucs football, among other things, tonight.
Me too, man.
And it's, again, very cool to see you in the face. Last time we had you on the podcast, it was just a freaking phone call, and I was about
you guys have upgraded.
Right,
you guys have upgraded the live stream pod, so I'm it's my honor to be on.
It just takes years. That's all it does. It just takes years. We're at snail's pace. But
it's getting better every day. That's all that matters.
Right. We last we ended, we were like, we should bowl it up someday. Like just do some 1-on-1 or 5-on-5 basketball, and we didn't do shit at that at all. So, and now you're in North Carolina or the Carolinas. We can't do shit now.
I know.
I don't know.
Probably a little bit more difficult now.
All right. You can't even play in a basketball court right now. But other than that, let's talk some Buck football, and let's get your take on Tom Brady coming to the Buccaneers. I mean, everyone thought it was impossible or improbable it would happen. But guess what? He's a Buccaneer. I just want to hear your take on it, and we'll get your feedback from that.
Yeah, it's wild. Certainly never would have thought that this would have been the case. I always believed, very few times in sports we have these opportunities where you have the storybook ending, right? I mean, it's a championship team, a championship quarterback, a championship coach, and they get to stick together through it, and a guy gets to stay on the whole team for his entire career. I thought that was going to be the case with Tom Brady. After we got to year like 12, 13, 14 of him being on the Patriots, I was just like, there's no reason for him to really go anywhere. They're still competing for Super Bowls, but even if they kind of start to fizzle off, a 15-year career, I mean, you could just call it a career and walk off as one of the greatest of all time. So I felt like he could have done that. And even this past year with the loss to the Titans, I mean, unless Tom Brady is waiting to like retire on a Super Bowl win, with knowing that he's probably only going to play until he's no longer a playoff caliber quarterback, unless you're winning the Super Bowl, your season's going to end on a loss anyways. And so everybody's like, oh, Tom Brady can't go out that way. He can't go out on a loss. But it's, unless you set up this situation where he's winning a Super Bowl and riding off into the sunset, then that's the only way that he doesn't end on a loss. And so I just thought that he'd always be a New England guy. I thought that he was going to be there forever. I started getting whispers that the Tom Brady leaving the Patriots was real kind of in like December, early January. And at this point, had no idea that it was going to be Tampa Bay. Didn't know Tampa was even in the conversation. But from some people that I was talking to, I was like, they're not just blowing smoke, right? And they're like, no, this is actually real. Like he could legit want to leave New England, which, again, I thought was kind of crazy. We get into January and February, and then all of a sudden I hear, okay, Tampa's a legit option for him, because we all make these jokes all the time, right? Any big free agent, we go, you get to live in Florida, no state income tax, and you're basically just going to like retire here anyway, so you might as well just like get to the latter parts of your career, make it happen, make the transition easy because you're still making millions of dollars. So we've joked around about that a lot, but the Tom Brady stuff kind of came into him, I think, really liking Bruce Arians, liking that the team stayed relatively similar to what it was last year, and then he knew that he could bring what they were missing. And that's what they hope. Obviously, nothing's proven yet, but that was the whole allurement to it. And I think this is a really fun challenge for Tom Brady, not just in his professional career, but also like in his life. He's been a New England guy for the last 20 years. You do anything for 20 years, and I don't know if you get sick of it, but you're probably just looking for at least some kind of change. And so it's crazy to think that Tampa was the team to win him over, because even though Tampa has gotten big free agents in the past, I don't think it's been anything like this. But here he is. They made it happen. Jason Light, Bruce Arians, they were able to reel him in. They did an incredible job of that. And for, all the criticism that some of this regime has gotten, especially with Jason Light over the last couple of years, these were the two big fish, right? He got Arians to come to Tampa Bay, get him out of retirement. And now he got Tom Brady to come to Tampa Bay. And so you could certainly look at his early questionable moves or failures as a GM, but he's starting to hit his stride. Man, things are coming together for him in this organization.
Absolutely. Plus, go ahead.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you look at it, and I think me and Mark talked about this as far as Tom Brady coming here, we're like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. Like, no way. Like, he's either going to stay a Patriot or he's going to go to, Los Angeles or something like that, where I believe he's got a film production studio out there. So, yeah. But, for him to come to Tampa Bay, I mean, I think, and Trevor, you touched on this as far as the challenge. I mean, and I'll ask you this, as far as the challenge going to Tampa Bay, you think it's mainly because he wanted to show like he can do it on his own aside from Belichick and, as far as the coaching staff?
Yeah, I think that was probably just the main reason why he wanted to leave. It's always so hard to have really good players and coaches work together for as long as you do, because when you're at the top of the pro level, like, it's egos, like there have been years where Tom Brady and other players have taken like less money so they can sign different guys and bring them in. But I don't want that to take away from the fact that there's so much pride in a lot of what these guys do. And the reason why the Patriots dynasty, I think, was so rare is because it involved two of the greatest to ever do it in Brady at the quarterback position and Belichick as a head coach. And both of them could somehow work together for this long. Both of them were able to, I don't know, put their pride aside is the right way to say it. They just meshed, I think, for a while. And then it kind of, maybe over the last like 6-ish years, it was more of like putting up with each other, realizing that if they stayed together, they would win. And then they continued to do that. But that's got to be the fun part for Brady, is that for the first time in 20 years, he gets to feel like a rookie again, right? I mean, like he gets to feel like a kid again, if you will, because he'd never hit the free agent market before, right? He never was deciding between other teams. This was never really a realistic option for him. And now in his early 40s, he gets the chance to do something that really a lot of football players get to do when they're 26, 27, 28 when it comes to signing that second-year contract, or at least hitting the market. And for a lot of the guys that even, let's say they don't hit the market, let's say that they get a re-sign of a contract with the team that drafted them, by the time they're 30 and 31, they're probably getting either cut or they're hitting free agency. They're not getting re-signed. So you get that eventually. For Tom, it had been like 20 years since he had this. And so that's why I think that it's got to be cool for him. Tampa kind of being the place, I mean, that's a different topic, but just overall him moving teams, no longer being in New England, you're going to see a rejuvenated Tom Brady. And certainly everyone who is in Tampa is hoping that it's still the assassin, cerebral Tom Brady that comes with it. But this is going to be a different look Tom Brady than I think that we've ever seen.
No, and also to add to that point, I mean, someone in the chat put out there, Jaron Shilveret, I'm terrible at pronouncing things, but he said Randy Moss with Brady versus Mike Evans with Brady. So that brings me to the point. It's like, our massive amount of weapons. So like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, now you have Gronk. And it wasn't just Brady. We came up with a story. It was his mama. He wanted to be closer to mama. Hey, we all should be. But the amount of weapons that we do have on this team, that probably also helped him just make it an easier transition, saying, holy crap, if I have all this to throw to, it should ease my transition a little bit.
Well, he wasn't going to go to somewhere where he couldn't win, right? I mean, he wasn't just going to leave just to leave. I'm sure that they were, because there is any time there's free agency. I know people talk about, tampering, blah, blah, blah. I have no concrete evidence about this, but I'm sure there were talks of like, hey, the door in Tampa could be opening up. He could be hearing something, talking to people around the league, whatever. And so it being Tampa was a good decision for him because it's a young defense on the rise. And it's an offense that has firepower everywhere. And I think top to bottom, this is the best passing arsenal he's ever had. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yep. With Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and potentially Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, and then obviously that tight end room is amazing too. You're just hoping one of the running backs really starts to pan out. And this is truly the best supporting cast he's ever had. Now, people are going to bring up the Randy Moss, Mike Evans thing, and we already got the question to that in the chat.
Yeah.
Listen, if you have watched, or if you haven't watched Brady and Randy Moss highlights, go to YouTube and just YouTube every Tom Brady to Randy Moss touchdown the year that they broke the record. The year that Brady had,
Like
what was it, like 49 touchdowns, and I think Randy Moss had 20-something touchdowns. Go watch some of these passes. They're absolutely stupid. Brady throws these passes up into double and triple coverage and just goes, I'm giving Randy Moss a chance to go get it. Now, I don't think he's going to have that same kind of mentality with Mike Evans. Maybe he will every now and then. He's certainly going to bet on his receivers. I'm not saying that he won't, but it's not going to be as much of a Tom Brady looks downfield. He's like, well, Randy Moss is on a go route, so here it goes. And then he just immediately takes over and scores a touchdown over 3 guys. I think you're going to see some flashes of Mike Evans there, but I'm not ready to, as much as I love Mike Evans as a player and a person, not ready to compare him to the greatest of all time quite yet. But this is going to be a very fun pairing, getting to see Evans work with a guy like Tom Brady.
Yeah, so I just quickly looked it up. 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions that season.
Unbelievable.
Right? Like, just fathom that number.
Jameis threw 30 touchdowns last year, and we thought it was, 33, and we just thought that it was a crap ton, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, we thought that was a stupid amount of touchdowns that he threw. Tom Brady threw, 18, 17 more than he did? Wow.
Right? Like, just... Well, I mean, like you said, though, like, the amount of weapons he has, obviously that helped move the transition a little bit easier. And then let's also touch on, you said the tight end room, plus even came out in one of our podcasts saying we could literally run our offense strictly through that tight end room. You can literally be in 12 personnel and just run it over and over and over because that's how good that room is. So what do you think of Gronkowski's addition? I joked about he's closer to mom, but how good do you think he'll be after this year of retirement? And will he make an influence on OJ? And what does he look like in our offense, considering Arians with the wide receivers?
Right. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because last year we were having the discussion of, Arians doesn't really use tight ends. Mm-hmm. We're like, Tampa should probably trade off either Howard or Brady, depending on like how they start playing. Now all of a sudden it's the most crowded tight end room in the NFL, right? It's just funny how that narrative an entire year later comes to pass. And so I think it'll be interesting from Gronkowski. Obviously, he's not going to be the target monster that he was in New England, but that's less about his age and more about he doesn't have to be. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are already in this offense. O.J. Howard's going to be an athletic guy that can stretch the field up the seam. Gronk can almost simply be a third down guarantee, a red zone monster, and just a security blanket for Tom Brady. And if that quarterback to tight end connection just stays a really high completion percentage, Gronk's worth it, and so everybody's always like, what are they going to get out of Gronkowski? Like, some people are saying, he won't be anything. He's taking a year off football. He's hurt all the time. I think the year off football is probably great for him. I think that his body loved it, probably not eating that many calories, working out as much as he was. He's saying that he's enjoyed getting back into the swing of things, and I think that he has because Gronkowski retired, I think, largely because of those injury problems and because his body was really telling him, like, hey, man, I can't do this much longer. So it never seemed like it was like a desire thing, like, I'm going to hang him up because I don't want to play football anymore. It was more of a body thing, like, I've got to hang it up. That's the smart thing for me to do. So for him to come back, I think it makes a lot of sense. He's going to be rejuvenated. It's a new team. It's a new city, but it's the same quarterback. It's the same connection. It could honestly just be the best of both worlds and all that. And when people ask what can Tampa expect of Gronkowski, I go back to what I said originally. That's what you should expect. Being a third down player, being a guy who could be a receiver as much as a blocker. I think he's going to have a lot of energy having a year off of football, and he's just going to be that security blanket for him. And Tom Brady really needed that, and I think that's why Tom was caping so hard for Gronkowski to come back. He guaranteed him what his role was going to be, and he was clearly happy with it.
Yeah, plus go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more, Trevor. I mean, I think when you look at it, you have so many options to create mismatches, and Gronk is probably one of the biggest mismatches you can have as far as on your team, and I think just the attention that he's going to draw is going to create so much more for other guys. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you look at it like Tyler Johnson, who, I talked about. I think he's going to be wide ass open pretty much all the time because. I mean, how are you supposed to cover this guy? Especially in the slot or, Chris Godwin in the slot. I mean, it's going to be very tough for defenses. I mean, you put OJ Howard and Gronk on the two tight end sets, and then you can motion them out wide. I mean, defenses aren't going to know what to do against that.
It's really tough, and if Tampa can find their receiving back, whether it is Ronald Jones, maybe Keyshawn Vaughn, maybe they pick somebody else up, I don't know. But if they can find their receiving back, it's hard to envision this offense being stopped on paper. Yeah. Everybody's expecting a lot of things from the Buccaneers this year. I mean, I see some record predictions in the chat right there.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the year to win it all. Now, I think that they're going to compete, and I think they will be a playoff team. I do think that. But I think that it's really all about next year. Like, it's figuring out what exactly Brady might need to top all of this off, to work with Arians, to work with Leftwich. Another year of that defense getting a little bit older. I know they have some aging guys on there. Levante David's the big one to think about that doesn't have a ton of time left in the hourglass. I think though he's playing at a high level. It's really about setting up for next year. And so even if they don't get that receiving back that they are hoping to this year, they can go all in to get one of those guys next year, because if you have at any given time Mike Evans or Chris Godwin guaranteed to be on the field, and then one tight end of OJ Howard or Rob Gronkowski, and then you have a flex option of either having Tyler Johnson in the slot or a second tight end in Gronk or OJ, maybe even Cam Brate if it's a short yardage situation, and then you throw a backfield receiving threat in there too, there's not enough defenders, because Mike Evans has to get double attention. Chris Godwin is now basically commanding double attention. We saw last year what happened when Chris wasn't getting double. He right. I mean, like, he had. I think he was in the top 3 of the NFL before he got hurt. Him and Evans both were. And so you just throw in more of those options. Hell, if the offensive line holds up at all, it's hard to envision this thing not working out for them. And so that's not being overly optimistic. That's not being kind of like a hometown coverage homer, but I just don't know many teams in the NFL, if any at all, that could match up with the personnel the Bucs are shaping up to have over the next year or two.
Exactly. It's just logical, right? I mean, if we can put that much numbers up and give the ball away as well, imagine when we add more weapons to it. We just added at least 2 or 3 more weapons, got a better right tackle, so to speak, through Wirfs in the draft. We'll talk about that later. And then we're just loaded. And then we got a better decision maker at the helm to make these throws to these playmakers. I mean, how the hell else can you find a way to stop us? It's
yeah.
But then again, that's why I'm kind of driving a hype train right now, because I just can't believe it, to be honest. But before we keep going to the draft, let me address some of these things. The Pewter Cask over here wanted to know if you're a fan again, a Bucs fan again. Are you a Bucs fan again?
No. I am a member of the media. I am not a fan of any team.
I can see straight through that damn smile. Don't even.
You guys can watch the podcast if you want, and you can see my facial reaction. But no, I am not a fan of any team in the NFL.
Okay, fair enough. All right, and then also, I guess people wanted to know some schedule predictions and just.
Oh.
Or since you're intrigued by that, go ahead.
Okay. I don't have it up in front of me. Hold on, let me look. We can go down the list right now, and I could give you my way too early. You are not allowed to hold this against me schedule prediction.
Hey, we did the same thing. I said conservative was 10-6, and I believe
about to me 10-6.
Yeah. And then shooting for the stars is like 13-3, I think.
Okay, regular season. Oh, at New Orleans.
That's a tough.
I'm gonna say they lose at New Orleans. I see they beat Carolina, they beat Denver, they beat the Chargers, they beat Chicago, they beat Green Bay, they beat Las Vegas, they beat the Giants.
Damn, he's just freaking stacking them wins, my man.
I think they'll beat New Orleans. They'll beat Carolina. The Rams will be tough. Kansas City will be tough. I'll say they drop both of those. They're at 9. And I think that they'll get, out of the last 4, it's Minnesota, at Atlanta, at Detroit, Atlanta. They're winning. If they win 2 of those, it's so I think, yeah, it's so I was kind of conservative on that run there. I mean, I could see them winning all those games, but I think it's somewhere between 10-6 and 12-4. 12-4 would be really, really good, though. I think that, look, we can sit here and say, hey, this team on paper could match up with anybody. It's a different thing going out there and doing it. It's just 12 wins is so many wins. That's such a good season. It's so hard to have a 12-win season. I think somewhere between 10-6 and 12-4 is realistic for this team. But man, if they go 12-4 in their first year with Brady, that is impressive. That's really impressive.
Did it first year with Gruden. Why not? Super Bowl bound, 12-4.
It's true. It's true.
And we lost twice to the Saints, so who the hell cares, right?
Yep, just watched so much Bucs football in my life that it's hard for me to think that the 12-4 is reasonable in a first year with a big change. But that's
right.
Over that, it's probably somewhere between 10-6, 12-4.
I agree. Our season prediction was actually 12-4. So
okay,
I think we're right in that range there, like
that.
You said. So.
All right, Trevor. So now let's move on to the next nitty-gritty NFL draft. So it came and went. We got a lot of new Buccaneer players. So what did you think of our first-round selection, Tristan Wirfs and Antonio Winfield, just running down the line? What did you think about the Bucs overall draft, and did they get better?
Yeah, no, I think that they definitely got better. Tristan Wirfs is a fantastic pick. And I think even more than just the Wirfs pick itself, being able to stay relatively close to where their original draft position was. Obviously, they only traded up 1 spot. So picking close to that and still getting one of the best 4 offensive tackles in the draft. I said before the draft kicked off, I was like, there's no way they can do that. There's no way Tampa's going to sit at 14 and be able to get one of the top 4. And pretty crazy that it happened the way that it did. But they're lucky. They're very lucky that they get Tristan Wirfs. He's a ball of clay. That's the best way for me to say it. He's an unbelievably freakazoid athletic ball of clay where if you get the right teacher, if you get the right offensive line coach and the mentors around him, the sky's the limit with this kid. I mean, what he's able to do, whether it's playing right tackle or left tackle, he has the athleticism, I think the functional strength, love the wrestling background from him to be able to do it all, basically everything that you would ask from him. So the fact that they stayed at 13 and they were able to get Wirfs, that's an A+ for me. The second round, and I've told this story a couple times, I was doing a live broadcast during day 2 of the draft. And as we got closer to pick number 45, myself and my colleague Jordan Reed, we were the 2 who were on the broadcast. A couple of the running backs had started to go a little bit early. Obviously, I know a lot of Bucs fans really wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I tried to tell as many people as I could the week leading up to the draft because of what I had heard. I was like, he will not be at 45. He will not make it to 45. There's no way.
Did you think it was going to be a first-round pick?
I didn't. I knew it would be close. Right. I knew that Kansas City was probably a team that was going to consider him, but I ultimately had Edwards-Helaire as the first running back taken, or at the very worst, the second running back taken in the second round. So that's kind of where I thought. I knew there was a chance he could go first round because there were a couple of teams that really liked him enough to maybe even trade up into the first round, but that's kind of just I knew it wasn't going to happen. But as we were getting closer to 45, pick 41, 42, it's like, okay, J.K. Dobbins is still on the board. Like, all right, I didn't think that Dobbins was going to be around for their pick. 43, 44, Dobbins is still there. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna get Tristan Wirfs and J.K. Dobbins. This is unbelievable. And Jordan said to me, he's like, what player or position would they pass J.K. Dobbins over for? And I told him directly, I said, Antoine Winfield is the only player that I could possibly see them taking over J.K. Dobbins. And I promise you, I'm not making it up. You can go check the timestamps. You can go back and check the broadcast. It's up on Twitter still, so you can go check it. I said the pick before Tampa came up at 45, I was like, Antoine Winfield Jr. is the only player that they would take over Dobbins. Now, I don't know if he was the only player, so I can't credit that myself. But they did end up taking Winfield Jr., and it makes a lot of sense because They have speed and athleticism on the back end. That's what they wanted to do last year. They drafted Mike Edwards because they thought that he was a ball hawk. He gave them what they wanted in speed, and he had some good intelligence on the back end. They were pairing that with Jordan Whitehead, who, as we know, is a fearless, athletic guy back there, right? He's not even afraid to throw his own body into guys who are 3 times his size. I mean, he's just a reckless athlete. Well, I don't say reckless kind of sounds mean when I say it like that, but he is just going one.
I'm assuming he said 100% of the time.
That has a lot of athleticism there. And, of course, Justin Evans, too. They're still hoping that he can get back to form, and the whole reason why they drafted him is so he could be athletic on the back end. They've got the athletes. They need the intelligence. They need the field general on the back end. They need the guy to be at the single high to point things out, to know where the corners are going to be, to know where the linebackers are dropping in their zone, to understand where the blitz is going to come from and what might result from it. You can tell on Winfield's tape that he's got a football background. If you just took his name away, obviously not knowing that Antoine Winfield Sr. was a 14-year NFL vet, you could tell he's had some sort of family or football upbringing because of how good he is on the back end. So those 2 picks, highly impactful for them. I really expect them to be year 1 contributors for them. They're going to be in the rotation right away.
I fully agree with those 2 points. I want to make one question about Wirfs. Do you see him doing better at run support than pass blocking at first? That was my only knock on him. He's a little too raw at first, and I feel like he gets it beat inside a little too often for my liking. But again, like you said, he's a ball of clay. He has everything as in measurables and athleticism as you want. It's just teaching him to use those traits. Do you see that at all?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's just going to be... I mean, nothing's going to be an easy transition, but how do you see him developing into the league?
Playing offensive line in the NFL is very difficult, and making the transition is very, very difficult. It's just straight up grown men in there in the trenches that you're going up against every single play. Even if you are at a Power 5 conference in college football, you might not be seeing NFL pass rushers every week. It might just be 2-3 times a year. In the SEC, it's probably more than other conferences, but it's probably still like 2, 3, 4 max you're really seeing these NFL players go up against you. And so Wirfs at this point in time is a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But you bet on the movement skills that he has, and you want to just be able to teach him those things. Like I said, he's a ball of clay. He's got everything that you want. It's just then up to somebody to mold him into the pass rush or the pass protector that he can be.
You think Harold Goodwin and Joe Gilbert are those 2 guys to do it?
I like Harold Goodwin a lot, and he gets a fun project now with Tristan Wirfs. And I think that he's been around the block for a while. He understands the game. He understands offensive line play. And even beyond offensive line play, he just understands offenses very well. So he understands what movements benefit the offense in a certain way. And I think he can tie things all together very well. And so whether he's the right man for the job, we'll see that in a year or 2, but he has a great opportunity here with a player like Wirfs. And if you're an O-line coach, you couldn't ask for anything better than a guy who has the kind of ceiling that he does.
All right, plus, get on in there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you look at Tristan, and I kind of compare him to Devin White a little bit. I know they play different positions, but you talk about that ball of clay, and I think Devin White was that last year, and just looking like he's got everything you want, but you want that mental processing to pick up a little bit. And I think he did that, as the season went on and became a stud. So I kind of see that in the same realm for Tristan Wirfs coming up this year, where he can, kind of develop into what you want him to be and become that guy by, mid-season or end of the year, to say so. But I'm really excited about, adding him, because I think it'll give you the opportunity to run to the left or to the right.
Yep.
And you'll be a little bit more versatile there, and that will allow, more for play action, more for, just moving guys around, and it's gonna create a lot of good things for this offense. But back to Antoine Winfield just for a second, I was very excited about that pick. I jumped out of my chair when that was the selection, because he's a first round guy in my opinion as far as tape goes. Like, he's just so intelligent, very smart. I compare him to Tyrann Mathieu and Budda Baker. I think is another good comparison. So, yeah, very excited for what he can bring to the defense. And, why we have you on the draft topic here, Trevor. Let's dive into just a little bit. I know you're obviously big on the Draft Network, and you do your own podcast, Locked On Draft NFL Draft Podcast, that is really popular. You and Benjamin do a really good job. So just touch about like how that came together, and really give us like an insight as far as how you approach the draft, because I know you are working it like pretty much year round. It's like 365 as far as your draft coverage goes.
Yeah, well, really appreciate the kind words on the podcast. We have a lot of fun on there. I actually got started on the podcast, and this is really funny how everything kind of came full circle. I started on Locked On NFL Draft because John Ledyard, who is now working at Pewter Report, he was the host at Locked On NFL Draft when Luke Easterling actually left there, and that left a spot open. So John had called me and he said, "Hey, I got a spot on this podcast. Do you want in?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a blast." And so John and I did it for about a year. Then Ben came in and took John's place. So then now it's been me and Ben ever since then. But the funny thing is that John got me the job doing Locked On NFL Draft. And now John does my job at Pewter Report. So it's just like, it's crazy. It's so cool how those completely flip that way. I'm super excited that John is now covering the Tampa beat, because he's honestly John's one of the smartest football minds I know. Like, I've learned so much football from John over the years, and just doing that podcast, and even outside of work. And so Bucs fans are going to love how detailed he is in his coverage of the team. He breaks down tape really well. He understands the game so well. I've learned so much from him, and so I'm super, super excited that the Bucs fans have an opportunity now to read a lot of John's work, because it's a lot of great stuff. But it's fun covering the draft year round. It's definitely different, right? It's different than covering a team, because you go, okay, in the season, all of the moves are towards winning games and a certain coaching staff, a certain scheme, a certain fit. Now it's much more towards, I'm covering all of college football. You're trying to get your eyes on a lot of different guys, 300, 400, 500 guys in a single cycle. And then you also have to try to know all 32 teams really well, not just their needs, but their coaches, their schemes, how people fit, certain contracts with different teams. It's a lot. It's a lot of information that I'm covering now from a draft perspective. But there's no doubt about it that the draft is something that you can cover 365 days a year, because it's the perfect marriage of college football and NFL football. It's the best of both worlds. You're getting the best of college football, moving into becoming the best in the NFL. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a process I've always really enjoyed getting to cover, not just from a team perspective, but also these athletes, getting to tell their stories and know where they're coming from and the things that they've sometimes had to overcome, and just watching these guys rise to stardom, if you will. It's a thing to watch and even get to cover as closely as I do.
Yeah, some people in the chat, they were calling you Carolina Trey since you moved down or up there. And then because
I saw somebody at the very top say thank you for Trevor because he moved and he brought the curse with him.
Yeah, I saw that.
You all owe me, okay? Every win above 7 wins that this team gets this year, you owe me. Just so we are all very clear. I took the curse to Charlotte with me, I guess.
There wasn't more than 7 wins the whole time you were here? No, there was a 9-7 season, right?
Yeah, 9-7, 2016. Yeah.
I did not cover the 2016 team.
Oh,
so
right.
Damn, Trevor, get the hell out of here.
I started covering the team full time the 2017 season. So 2017, 2018, 2019 were my 3 years covering it full time.
That's right. Yeah.
Damn. Well, then, I will thank you every time past 7. And then Maddie SOP said, get some TB12 vitamins for having to go over all those 32 NFL teams and knowing their schemes and everything. So I picture you with like the Rain Man's like mindset, all the numbers going up over your head. Like shit, what are they 3-4-4-3?
It makes it a lot easier when there's a lot of really great football writers out there, and I try to make sure my timeline and my bookmarks are filled with the people who know the teams best, because that's something that I've had to learn very quickly is you got to be honest with what you don't know. And as much as I want to know about the rest of the league and make sure I'm on top of things and know situations as well as I can, I'm never going to know the team as well as somebody who covers them full time, and that's just their job. So you form a list, you find people you love reading, you let them educate you year round, and you continue to enjoy the process, because as I hopefully am teaching people about things and entertaining and a combination of all those things, I'm also learning year round. I'm also making sure that I'm reading other people and staying in my work in that regard too.
And then another.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Plus.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, just speaking on that, as far as the process goes, what kind of like tips would you give as far as like, when you're sitting down watching tape, and like, how would you go about organizing that and making sure you're staying on what you need to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody watches tape a little bit differently. For example, there are a lot of people who listen to music when they watch tape. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't listen to music when I watch tape. A lot of people like listen to podcasts and stuff too while they watch tape, and I'm like, how do you focus? The people who can do that, I'm very jealous of, because they knock many things out while they're just getting a tape grinding session in there. But anytime I'm watching tape, obviously it's specific to certain positions, what you're looking out for. And there are positions that I love to watch just more than others. Wide receiver is a position I really love to watch. Edge rusher is a position I love to watch. Safety, when I can get the all-22, is a position I love to watch. And so you'll always have your preferences. And that's something that I always tell people, is that when you're getting into this business, and even if you're not, maybe if you just want to do this recreationally, you just want to watch some more tape, you want to be more knowledgeable about things, but you want to kind of create your own process, start with the thing you're most passionate about, right? I mean, like, I have a lot of people who go, oh, I don't really understand quarterback play, but quarterback's number one in Madden when you sort the roster thing, so I guess I'll start with quarterback, and then I'll go to running back, and then I'll go. Look, if you're a wide receiver guy, watch wide receivers first. If you're a big defensive guy, watch defensive players first. Anytime you start doing this, start with the thing that you love the most. You will find that your most creative ideas, your best processes, your best tips and tricks that you find for yourself and how you become a better evaluator will always start out with what motivates you to go back to the screen, to learn more, to go watch another guy. So I always tell people, start with the thing that you're most enjoyable with, and then two, make sure you're focusing more on what a guy can do than necessarily just like knocking him and being like, nah, this guy can't play, or things like that. When you see the flashes, that's what scouting is all about. It's about what they can do. Now, the limitations come into play when you're forming a full scouting report, but even NFL staffs, they often want to hear, what can this guy do? Because often a lot of the negative stuff that comes with it could come from bad coaching at college, or just a guy not being taught a certain way, or things like that. They can go, look, I'm an NFL coach, I can fix this. Tell me what he can do. What's his ability? Where does he win? And so that's always just a general overview. No matter what position I'm watching, you've got to focus on where a guy can win, because that's the only way that you can really envision him being worth a draft pick for your team. The rest you can figure out as you build out the full scouting reports.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It brings to mind like Sheldon Rankins when he was at Louisville. They put him out wide so often. I'm like, this dude isn't an outside edge rusher. Put him inside. Let him be a 3-tech. Let him use that burst that he has. I mean, and that's what the Saints have been doing. He's been eating off of that. But, I mean, that's very cool and easily worded out. I really like that you said that. But let's go back to more joking things. It was just in the chat. So Jay Elmore said, buffalo chicken sliders or chili. I think I know your answer, though.
Oh, Jay's Chili. So Jay, shout out Locked 6 crew. When I would go to the home Bucs games, it was funny because at Pewter Report we got 3 parking passes, but only 2 of them were in the media lot, which is like the first lot, like right next to the stadium. And being that I was the low man on the totem pole, like 20 years younger than Scott and Mark, they got the good parking passes, and I had to park in lot 6 with a lot of the other fans who show up to tailgate. Luckily for me, lot 6 is like the diehard tailgate group. So as I started to go to games and I started parking in that lot, I noticed that Jay, who I got to know really well, him and what they call Lot 6 crew,
Yeah,
they
I saw
have a
this.
tailgate, and they're out there right when the tailgate lot's open every time. And so I would show up to games about 3 hours early. That's normally what I show up, just to make sure I get up there and I get situated and everything. You get the pregame, you get something to eat, you get all your work done early, all that stuff. So I'd show up about the same time that they would, and they'd have the grill going. And sometimes Jay would be cooking up stuff, and he'd be like, "Oh, you got to try this before you leave," and I'd hang out with them for a little bit. So that was honestly one of my favorite memories of over the last couple of years of getting to cover Bucs games, was getting to park in that lot. And so, man, he makes some mean chili, but I gotta go with the buffalo chicken sliders. Like that was a top tier tailgating food. And so if you're ever in the area, Jay makes a mean buffalo chicken slider, and you got to hit him up for it if you're in the tailgate area.
Awesome.
All right,
Well,
Jay,
to second that,
better show up, Jay. I want to see some of this.
hey,
He won't
to,
let you down, I promise.
to second off of that, I know Trev, you're big on barbecue. So now, since you're in Carolina, what's your go-to spot?
See, I'm still kind of learning the area, but right now we go to a place called Sweet Lou's, and it's fantastic. It truly can live up to the 3 sides minimum rule that I have.
Awesome.
Different sides. They've got great brisket. They've got really great pulled pork. The biscuits and cornbread are also pretty good. And the thing is, look, I know some people, when they talk barbecue, they go, if you have the right rub and you cook it right, you don't need sauce. I want sauce, okay? Like, I'm a barbecue sauce guy. There's all kinds of different sauces, and I love them all. And so if you got good barbecue sauce, I'm going to be a sucker for your food. And not just because I'm in it trying to take away the taste. This place, Sweet Lou's in Charlotte, North Carolina, is my favorite place so far.
Awesome.
And then Jay Elmore had one more question. Lot 6 prank. What's your best one? I guess there's a lot. I guess.
So here's the thing, right? The game would end, and I would be working for probably another at least 3 or 4 hours after that. We're recording a podcast, we're writing our post-game stuff, and so Jay and everybody from Lot 6 would be going back to their cars and they'd be leaving. So my car was often the last car, like truly the last car out of the lot that was left. And every now and then Jay would play a fun prank, and he'd either like TP my car or one time they made a Miller Lite or a Bud Light pyramid with all the empty cans that they had, and I had to individually walk them all to the recycle trash can and throw them all away. But by far the best prank, as much as I hate this, is he stuck I think it was a bratwurst or maybe it was a hot dog underneath the handle on my car door. And so I went to go open my car door, and there was this slimy bratwurst in there. And I was like, whoa, like I thought it was like a slug or something, like the biggest slug in the world or something. And so I was like, what the heck is this? And so he likes to take pride in his pranks of my car. So that was probably the best one.
Hey,
that's great.
At least it's showing some love, kinda, I guess. But actually, I had a couple more Bucs questions. So
yeah, that's it.
Of the draft, of these like final guys, like Calais, what's his first name?
Raymond
Calais and Chappell. Do you think any Chappelle Russell?
Yeah,
Do you think right. Do you think any of these guys make the roster, or do you think they have a fighting chance? Just want to kind of get your feedback on that.
I mean, my favorite guy is for sure Khalil Davis. I mean, I'm a big Khalil Davis guy, and he got drafted in the 6th round. I mean, don't sleep on this dude. I think Davis is either making the team or making the practice squad, but I think that he's going to make the team because of how athletic he is. I mean, he's a freak. Him and his brother. Let me make sure that I have this right. They're in the 90th percentile somewhere when
they ran a 4.75 or something like that, right? For defensive tackle.
Yeah, what was it? He was at 310 pounds. He ran a 4.75 40, which is in the 83rd percentile of all defensive linemen, which includes defensive ends. Can they break this down more? I'm trying to see if D-line, interior defensive line. Okay, yeah. For interior defensive line.
I love this.
For interior defensive line, a 4.75 is in the 98th percentile. That means there are only a handful of interior defensive linemen in the league right now who have that kind of athleticism. I mean, that's the kind of rarity that we're talking about Khalil Davis. And I also did a feature on them. I got to know Khalil as well as his brother Carlos really well, their family too. I got to talk to their adopted mom and dad, and they're phenomenal people. Like they're the people that you root for. I know that Jason Light knows their entire story. I think they're going to make the team. I really do think that Khalil Davis is going to make the team, and they're going to groom him behind Dominic Sue and Vita Vea. Russell's kind of he's going to be more of a speed rusher if he makes the team, and then Calais Campbell.
I thought the same thing.
Raymond Calais, he's kind of like a joystick guy, right? Both of these players, I think, were here to infuse more athleticism, more speed, more explosiveness into the roster. Not sure they make the roster, but they're at least going to push the guys that are there to say, hey, this is the standard of athleticism the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are at. And if you don't match it, you're not going to make this team. And so I think that it was more than these individual picks themselves, it was more of the trend of raising the floor of athleticism that we're seeing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because Bruce Arians said himself, just get me athletes. I'll figure out what to do with them after that. Yeah. Get me the people who are the most athletic. And I think that that's what these two picks were about.
No, I agree with that. Like pushing the envelope, even finding maybe a kick returner. Is it going to push TJ Logan or, I mean, like you said, special teamers. You got to find those guys.
Every year you're just trying to push how dynamic your football team can be. And I think that's what these two picks were about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, final question for me, and this is, going back off topic from football. We know, Trevor, you're big in pulp culture, so I got to ask it. I know you love the Marvel Universe, so is Thanos one of the best villains of all time? And then also, what do you pick versus Infinity War and Endgame as far as movies?
Okay.
Damn. Thanos just...
like you really can't have one without the other, because they complete each other so well, and they're an incredible ending to what is an incredible saga with the MCU. However, Infinity War is the better movie on its own, because they don't win. Because every single superhero movie, the superhero wins. And in Infinity War, you build up this evil villain so high, and then at the end they don't beat him, they don't win, he wins. And I remember, I've never felt a feeling like sitting in the movie theater midnight, of course, when Infinity War first came out, and I just didn't know what to do when the screen cuts to black and the credits come up, and Thanos is sitting there looking across a grateful universe, like he says, after doing what he said that he would do. You're like, there's no way. There's no way that just happened. And so I think that Infinity War is my favorite movie, although it's very hard to split the two. And then, of course, I mean, Thanos is one of the best villains ever. And I think the reason that he is one of the best villains ever is because he doesn't think he's a villain. Like, he thinks he's right? I mean, look at Thanos' entire thing. He believes he's doing the right thing. He doesn't think he's a villain. And so it's this incredible dynamic of two groups of people who think that they're doing the right thing, and yet one you believe is good, and then one you believe is evil. But that's an incredible, an incredible dynamic that they create. It's in that journey. The MCU journey is an unbelievable one. And I know you didn't ask, but just because I gotta say, I'll give you a bonus one. Winter Soldier is my favorite non-Infinity War Endgame movie. That is my favorite.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Winter Soldier as well. I mean, it's a really good movie. But just to second that, I know you're watching Game of Thrones. Like, how far are you into that now, or are you getting close to the finish line?
So I haven't watched Game of Thrones in a month and a half, and I need to get back on it because I'm almost to the end of season 5. So stuff's starting to hit the fan, and I really need to get back into it, but the draft was coming around, and obviously I had to finish all that, and I'm doing some recap stuff, and then we started watching The Last Dance and blah, blah, blah. But I need to get back to Game of Thrones because I got to finish it.
Gotcha.
Hey, Trevor, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a little bit of a lag the second when he said Thanos and you were about to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It like stopped for a second. Everything stopped. And I was like, holy shit, Thanos just... And literally he just came right back. It was perfect timing. I was like, holy shit. So I don't know how the hell that happened. I guess either YouTube figured it out or Wi-Fi decided to say, I'm going to make this decision for you. But that was pretty badass. But before I let you go, I want to make one more quick Buck-related question because this is something that we kind of believe. So say this happens for our defense. Our defense, I think, is young, up and coming. It's going to be...
So excited about the defense.
Yeah, right? But either way, say this is the worst of worst. If Vita Vea does go down, how much of an influence do you think he is on that defense? And do you think they can make up for that loss? I mean, do you see him as that much of an impact on the defense? And then if he does go down, do you think they have enough manpower? Because I know you like Khalil Davis, but I see him more as a one-gap rusher. Vita Vea can just hold up so much.
Yeah, I mean, Vita Vea is certainly important to this team. You know, I don't think there are a lot of other guys that can take up the blocks they can in the middle. I guess you can ask Will Golston to be, with his length, try and take up that kind of space, but Vita Vea does it so effortlessly. Yeah. I think his role is obviously very important to the team, but it's not as important as I think other roles are. And so if Vita were to go down, it would not be ideal, but I don't think it'd be like a kiss of death for them. Like, I think that they would be able to recover from it. Although I could be wrong, because if Vita takes this next step and becomes this true penetrating pass rusher for them, we've seen the kind of strength that Vea has on interior offensive linemen. And sometimes it just looks like he's just walking them back on skates. Like, it's effortless for him. But he doesn't – the light hasn't come on yet for him to – have those quick hands and get off those blocks and know what he needs to do to make a lot more backfield production. If that comes on, nobody else can do that on the team. Like, nobody else is giving them that kind of opportunity. So if he is what he was over the last couple of years, like let's say last year, that's an important presence. Like, him being an anchor is a really important part of this team, but I don't think it's a kiss of death, more as if they really start to emphasize what they do around him pass rushing in the middle, then they'd be in trouble, because I don't think anybody else in the team really has that kind of ability that he does, just because he's so strong.
Touche. Well, then, based on that, what is the kiss of death on the defense?
I
just literally threw a dagger at you.
Man. They're decently well-rounded. I'm going through all of the... Because, like, even if they get hurt at corner, they've got Dean. They can move Sean Murphy-Bunting outside. Yeah. If Dean goes down, they can move SMB outside. Nickel corner would kind of be suspect at that point, but they might be able to move a safety down to help them out.
Yeah.
I just think that probably... I think Levante David, Devin White, or Jason Pierre-Paul are the three guys that of the players on the defense that you could afford to lose the least, it's one of those three guys. Although they can make up for it, I think, in some other ways, but those are probably the highest impact players that I foresee in 2020 being the most difficult, because Jason Pierre-Paul is a freak. Levante David's obviously a general in the middle, and I think Devin White's going to take a huge step up this year in confidence with that athleticism. So in terms of, like, guys where them getting hurt would really hurt the team, those are the three that come to mind as the ones that are not... I don't know about kiss of death, because I think they're really well-rounded. I really do, but that's where they would lose the most if one of those three guys went down.
A strong term, right?
Yeah.
All right, other than that, thank you for everything, all the comments, all the feedback, all the everything you've given us. I mean, always good seeing you. Actually, available to see you, not face-to-face because of this pandemic stuff, but it's always cool. Other than that, Trevor, let everyone know where they can find you, where they can see your content, and I'll let you get on with the rest of your night.
Yeah, of course, man. It's awesome being on with you guys again. It's very cool being on with you video for the first time.
Right.
You know, when you guys upgraded, knew I had to get in on it, so that was great. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I always do. It's always a lot of fun talking football with you guys. For anybody that might not follow me that's watching this podcast, at Tampa Bay Trey on Twitter, and then if you want to read all of my work over at thedraftnetwork.com, that's where you can find all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was awesome joining you guys. Had a lot of fun this time, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Thank you, Trevor. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks,
and
Trevor. Yeah.
As usual, awesome, good time.
See you guys.
See ya.
See ya.
On that, Buck fans, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you on the next one.